Hi, this is Lisa, and welcome to the pre-recorded Literably 101 training. Let me share with you all our agenda for today's session. My goal is to help answer three main questions. 1, what is Literably? 2, why is your district using Literably? And then 3, how do we use Literably? The what and the why we'll cover pretty quickly, and we'll spend the majority of our time on the how. And more specifically, we'll look at how you can set up your teacher account and log in, how students can assess in Literably, and then finally, taking a look at the data that comes back to you and making sense of your teacher dashboard once you've assessed your students. And then finally, at the end, we'll take a look at how you can find additional resources and reach out for support if you have further questions. All right, so that first question, what is Literably? Literably is an online literacy assessment system that screens K-8 students for reading difficulties. It monitors their progress as readers, and it diagnoses skill gaps. How does Literably work? Well, in a nutshell, it works by having your students read aloud and answer questions into a device to complete a Literably assessment. And that device can be a laptop or desktop computer, a Chromebook, or an iPad. Literably's trained graders will then score each student's assessment, and then within 24 hours, you'll get those results back, both in the form of a notification email, and that information will be updated on your teacher dashboard. So why might your district or school be using Literably? Here are just some common things we hear from districts and schools around the country that are using Literably. One is that it provides a consistent data point across all classrooms because our trained graders are scoring these in a standardized way. It helps teachers to understand their students' reading levels, both their strengths and their weaknesses. It provides data to inform those instructional next steps. And in these parentheses here, you can see some of the types of data that are available as part of the graded Literably assessment. And we'll be looking at examples of all of these later on in our training. And then lastly, hopefully, by us taking on the grading of these assessments and then presenting the data back to you, digitizing it on your dashboards, that is hopefully freeing you up for all of the many things that need to take place in the classroom. All right, so as promised, the what and the why we covered pretty quickly. So let's switch gears and take a look at the how. And more specifically, we'll be looking at logging into your teacher account, the student assessment experience, and then finally taking a look at the teacher dashboard and understanding your student data. Okay, let's dive in. I'm going to toggle over to this page, which is the main login page for Literably, literably.com/login. Different districts use different methods for logging into Literably. So you'll need to check with your district's Literably contact to see what method your school or district uses. If your district uses Clever or ClassLink single sign-on, then you can click on these buttons here to take you through that single sign-on process, or you can log in through your Clever portal or ClassLink Launchpad portal. Another way for teachers to log in is to click on I'm a teacher and enter their email and a password that has been assigned to them. And you can always reset your password by clicking on this Forgot Password link. So let's take a look at a new teacher dashboard once we've logged in. When you're looking at your dashboard for the first time, what you might notice is that it looks fairly blank, which is pretty normal because your students haven't taken any Literably assessments yet. The first time you log in, we'd recommend that you do a couple of main things. One is to take a look at the list of students on your dashboard and just double check that these are the students you'll be working with. If there are any discrepancies, you can reach out to your Literably contact at your school. If your district uses Clever or ClassLink, this information is synced directly from your student information system, so it should be fairly up to date. If there are any Changes to your roster, it usually takes about 24 to 48 hours for those names to sync over. The second thing that we'd recommend for you to do is to come to this next assessment column at the right-hand side of your dashboard and take a look at the information here. What this is showing you is the level that your students will be assessing at the first time they log in to take a Literably assessment. So for example, here you can see that Frodo will be taking an oral reading fluency or ORF assessment at level K, reading a fiction text in English. Let me click on this Assign Next Assessment button and we can take a look at some additional details. I'm going to click on this reading level dropdown, and what you'll see here is that Literably uses A through Z guided reading levels. These are identical to those of Fontes and Pinnell. And as a default, your students will be assigned the first level that matches their grade. So since this is a dashboard that contains all second graders, you'll see that they've all been assigned to a level K text, which is the first level for second grade. We would definitely recommend adjusting this level based on any baseline information you already have for your students. So if you already know for some students that they might need to assess a little bit higher or lower than that recommended level, then definitely please feel free to make that adjustment. So for example, I'm going to adjust Frodo here to level N. Under reading, you'll see a list of texts that belong to each reading level. For any level, A through Z level in Literably, we have around 10 to 12 stories, both fiction and nonfiction. So the goal is that a student should not need to assess on the same text more than once in Literably. And if you would like to adjust this text, you can feel free to do so. I'm going to switch it to Buzz and Bingo in the Starry Sky. You can use this See Preview button to take a peek at the text, as well as the comprehension questions that go along with it. And you have the option of printing that out. And once you're done making those adjustments, please remember to press Save so that those changes are saved. So you can see here that Frodo now is scheduled to take a level N ORF assessment when he logs into Literably. So as a quick recap, the first time you log into Literably, your teacher account, please take a look at that list of student names and take a peek at your students' next assessment levels, and just make sure that those are kind of within the ballpark of where you would like your students to be assessing the first time they log in to take a Literably assessment. All right, now that we've taken a look at logging into your teacher account, we're going to log out as a teacher and log in as a student to see what the student assessment experience looks like. Students can log in a variety of different ways depending on the rostering method that your district or school uses. If you're using Clever or ClassLink, then they can also log in through their Clever portal or their Launchpad portal. Another way for students to log in is to click on I'm a student. And either enter a username and password that's been assigned to them, or they can enter your email in the top box here, and then select their name from this list of names in this drop-down menu. We would just caution for students to make sure to select the correct name, because as you can see, it is fairly easy to perhaps select a different student's name and log in into the wrong account. So if you are using this method for students to log in, just make sure that they're selecting the correct name before they move forward. So we're going to log in as Frodo Baggins and take an assessment. The very first time your student logs in to Literably, they'll be presented with a 30-second intro video that just describes what Literably is and how it works. And they just need to sit through that and kind of watch the video. Once they take an assessment in Literably, that intro video will no longer play in the future. So now when I log in as Frodo, we'll just hear a brief description of the story he'll be reading.
This book is called Buzz and Bingo in the Starry Sky. Read to find out what happens when Buzz and Bingo look through their telescope one night.
All right, so the device will read this book intro out loud to the student, and they just need to press next page to move forward. Here they'll see the start of the assessment. There will be a blue start button at the top, and the text will be blurred out so they can't pre-read it. At this point, your student's main job is to press that start button and then immediately begin reading the text out loud on the page directly into their devices. When they get to the end of the page, they should press next page to move forward, and they just need to keep reading out loud and pressing next page until they get to the end of the story. For levels A through P, there will be pictures on every page to accompany the text. And for levels above P, there won't be pictures, and your student may need to scroll down to see all of the text. When they get to the end of the story and don't see that next page button anymore, they should press stop to stop recording. Here, they'll be presented with 3 options: playback, record again, and comprehension. Most of the time, your student should be able to just press that comprehension button to move on to the comprehension section. But if they do have the option to use this playback button to listen to a recording of how they read the story, which may be helpful for kind of building their self-awareness of their reading. And they also have the option to record again. And they may need to use this button if, for example, there was an interruption the first time they were reading. An announcement came on over the intercom and there was a lot of background noise. That might be a reason to record again and get a cleaner audio file for their recording. If your student uses this record again button to read over and over again until they perfect their reading, what Literably will do is we'll always grade the very first full-length scoreable recording that we receive from a student on any given day for any given text. And so Literably will make our best effort to grade the recording that is a cold read from a student. But like I said, most of the time your student should just probably be able to move on to the comprehension section once they finish recording the story. Every Literably passage has 5 multiple choice comprehension questions, each with 4 answer choices. Your students can read these to themselves or use this blue speaker button.
He wags his tail.
To have these read out loud to them. Once they select the answer choices, they can move on to the next question. They can go back and change their answers if they need to. And they also have the option to use this return to reading button to go back to the text and look for information in the text. Our goal with these comprehension questions isn't necessarily to assess your students' recall of this information, but their comprehension, which is why we make this option available. And then they just need to click comprehension to get back to the questions. Once your student answers all 5 comprehension questions, they'll get to the very last section of the assessment, which we call the retell. And here, your student can either type their retell in the box, or they can press this Start Recording Answer button to record an audio response for the retell. And either way is fine. But I do want to mention that this retell section of the assessment is the one piece that Literably currently does not grade. We just haven't found an objective way to score all of the retells that come in from students. And so we'll provide you with either their written or their audio response, as well as a short rubric that you can use to grade the retell yourself if you'd like. But this retell piece is the one section that will not be graded by Literably. So once your student is done with that retell, they can press I'm done, log out, and then within 24 hours, this assessment will be graded. You'll receive an email with the results, and that information will be updated on your teacher dashboard. Okay, Now that your students have taken their Literably assessments, you should have a lot more data on your teacher dashboard. So let's take a look at this information and see what all of these different colors and numbers mean. I'm going to zoom in again on Frodo here, and let's see what we can find out about him after he's taken his first Literably assessments. So under this last assessment column here, we can see that the last assessment Frodo took was called Buzz and Bingo at level N. He read it at 121 words correct per minute, and he scored 99.2% in accuracy and 100% in comprehension. So what has Literably done with this information? If you take a look at this next assessment column here, you'll see that Literably has automatically adjusted Frodo's next assessment level to level P, 2 levels higher than N for his next assessment. So the next time Frodo logs in to take a Literably assessment, he'll be assigned a level P text. So how has Literably made this recommendation? I'm going to come back to our slides here and show you Literably's leveling table. This table is also in our Help Center, and there's a lot more information about it there. But for right now, just at a high level, you can see that Literably makes these leveling recommendations based on 2 criteria. One is accuracy, and the other is comprehension. And because Frodo scored at around 99% in accuracy and 5 out of 5, or 100% in comprehension, Literably has said, let's move him up 2 levels for his next assessment because he did quite well. And so for that reason, you see this level P here. Now, you always have the option to manually adjust that next assessment level if, based on the things you're seeing in the classroom, you'd rather for Frodo to reassess at a higher or lower level than P. Now, Literably is going to automatically alternate between fiction and nonfiction every time we assign a new text to a student to read, but you always have the option of manually selecting a different text in a different genre if you would like. All right, so let's go back to this leveling table for a moment. So as you can see, depending on your students' accuracy and comprehension scores on their most recent assessment, Literably might move them up 1 to 2 levels. We may keep them at the same level if they scored in this yellow range, or we may move them down 1 to 5 levels if they scored in kind of this red zone. If a student does particularly well or maybe really struggles on an assessment and you see this reassess in these boxes, then Literably is going to recommend for those students to take another assessment so that we have more data in order to really zero in on that student's instructional and independent levels. If your students' scores fall in this green range, we'll consider that level to be their independent reading level. And if their scores fall in this yellow range, we will consider that level to be their confirmed instructional level. So let's go back to Frodo here for a moment. You can see here that Literably has given him an instructional and independent reading level based on his scores on his most recent assessments. Next to the instructional level, you might see this star icon as you do here for Frodo. And what that star means is that right now Literably is currently estimating that instructional level, and it hasn't yet been confirmed. Based on how Frodo did on Buzz and Bingo at level N, we think that his instructional level is most likely P, but unless he actually takes that level P assessment and gets a score back, we just can't know for sure. And so that star is to just indicate that this is our best guess for Frodo's instructional level at the moment. And then next to Frodo's name, you'll see this circular arrow, which is that reassessment recommendation. Because Frodo's score scores did fall into one of these ranges that has the word reassess. And again, what this means is that Literably would really benefit from having an additional set of data to work with to really home in on his instructional level. So we would recommend for him to log back in, take another assessment, and get some more scores back. Ultimately, it's up to teachers to decide whether or not they want to reassess their students. And similarly, if a student doesn't have that reassess icon next to their name, and you feel that they would benefit from taking another Literably assessment and you having that additional data, then by all means feel free to have them log back in and take another Literably assessment. Within each of your assessment rounds that your district or school has purchased in Literably, we want you to feel free to assess and reassess your students as many times as you feel is needed in order for you to find their instructional levels in order to make those instructional next steps. To reassess in Literably, you just need to prompt your student to log back in and read a new story. They won't receive any notifications from Literably to assess, so that communication and that decision to reassess your students will need to come from you as their teacher. One more thing I want to point out about your dashboard is that the instructional level and your students' words correct per minute scores are color-coded according to how they're doing with regard to grade level expectations for those different measures. So blue means above grade level expectations, green means at, orange means approaching, and then red means below. In our Help Center, there are more details about the thresholds for these different cutoffs. All right, now that we've taken a look at the data on your dashboard, let's take a look at a graded assessment and see what kind of information can be found on there. And to do that, you just need to click on the name of that assessment. So let's click on Crouching Tiger, read by Harry Potter, and see what kind of information is on there. At the top of every graded assessment, you'll be able to play back the recording and listen to how your student read the text. Underneath that, you'll see their scores, which should match what's on your dashboard. And then beneath that, you'll see a running record for how they read the story. And you'll see different notations for all of the miscues they made, such as substitutions, self-corrections, omissions, insertions, etc. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see an MSV analysis for all the errors and self-corrections they made. At some point in the running record, you might see a double backslash. This indicates where Literably stopped grading this assessment. For most districts and schools, for levels A through G, we'll grade the first 2 minutes of each recording. And for levels above G, we'll grade the first 1 minute. So for students reading at those lower levels, this gives them some extra time to show what they can do. But regardless of where Literably stops grading, you'll always have access to your students' full recording and be able to listen to how they read the full story. Underneath the running record, you'll see a spot where you can leave notes that will be saved with the student's graded assessment. Underneath that, you'll see the comprehension questions. The bold is the correct answer, and the blue circles indicate how your student answered the question. So for Harry Potter, for number 3, the correct answer is B, and he selected answer choice A. At the very bottom of the graded assessment, you'll see your student's retell response. Here you can see that Harry typed out his retell. If he had recorded it, you'll see a playback button and be able to listen to his retell. Like I mentioned earlier, this retell piece is the one section that's not graded by Literably, but you do have the option of hand scoring it yourself if you'd like, based on this generic scoring guide that we provide here. Just keep in mind that even if you do score the retell yourself, it will not be factored into any of the leveling decisions that Literably makes. Back at the top of the graded assessment, you have the option to print it out, and there's also a secret access link button. What this does is it generates a URL that you can copy and paste and share with a colleague or a parent or the student themselves so that they can listen to the recording and look at the running record that the student made. So it's a great way to share that graded assessment data with them. So you might also be wondering, well, how can I look at all of the students' assessment data in one place? And to do that, you can either click on this assessment history button here, or you can go back to your teacher dashboard, find the student's name, and just click that student's name. And this will take you to their assessment history page. On here, you'll see their instructional and independent levels. If they've taken several assessments this year, you'll see some line graphs that chart their progress. Under the comprehension section, you'll see how the student is doing on different types of comprehension questions according to the Common Core standards across all of the different multiple choice comprehension questions they've answered on Literably assessments this school year. So for example, here you can see that for all of the chronology type questions Harry has received in Literably, he has answered 54% of them correctly. Under graded recordings, you'll see all of the assessments your student has taken on Literably. And if they use Literably across several years, this data should remain with them. And you can click on these links to listen to the recordings and see the running records for all of these graded assessments. Down here under non-graded recordings, you'll see a list of assessments that Literably wasn't able to grade for some reason. Sometimes what happens is a student will press that start button and then press stop right away, and this will generate a very short recording that we weren't able to grade. Maybe there was too much background noise, maybe they were whispering, and so those recordings will be placed here. So if you ever run into an issue where you've assessed a student on a Monday and by the end of the day, Tuesday, you still haven't seen any new scores for them, we definitely encourage you to click on that student's name and come to the non-graded recording section of their assessment history page and see if something maybe went wrong for them. And these labels here and these recordings should hopefully help you to diagnose what might have happened and to help them to troubleshoot that issue the next time they go in to reassess. At the top of the assessment history page, there's another secret access link button. And if you copy and paste and share this link with another person, they will have access to all of the students' assessment history and historical assessments. All right, let's go back to the teacher dashboard, and there are just a couple of other things I want to show you before we wrap up. The first is a tool that will be helpful for you for showing your students how to take a Literably assessment, and that is the Login as Demo Student feature. And to use that, you just need to find the demo student that is listed on your dashboard and click on this Login as Demo Student link. When you do that, you'll see some prompts at the top, and you just need to follow the prompts, which will ask you to enter your email and log in as a demo student. When you do that, you'll be able to pull up a sample assessment in the same way that I did earlier with Frodo Baggins, and use that to walk your students through the assessment experience. This is a great way to show them how to navigate through Literably, talk them through any strategies you want them to use while they're assessing or any expectations. So definitely take advantage of this feature before your students need to take their Literably assessments for the first time. The very last thing I want to point out on your teacher dashboard is this help button in the lower left-hand corner. If you click on this, you have the option to search for Help Center articles by keyword. And if you can't find the information that you're looking for, we encourage you to use this Contact Us button to send a question to our support team. And once we get your question, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So if you ever have questions about how an assessment was graded, or if you run into a technical issue, definitely feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And then very lastly, in the top right-hand corner, there are some shortcuts and other features and a help button. And if you click on your email, there's a way to change your password and download data exports. So you might also want to explore some of these features up here at the top. All right, so I just want to wrap up by sharing these additional resources and contact methods in case you have additional questions for us after this training. One is our Help Center, which is linked here, and which you can also access through that help button from your dashboard. And if you have questions for us, you can feel free to email us at support@literably.com, give us a call, or send us a message through that help button, which I just showed you. Thank you for joining us, and we're looking forward to working with you all.